Hi, good day. Sir Levy is here. Welcome to our new lesson. Today we are going to discuss decentralization as a concept of local government in the Philippines. So what is decentralization? Decentralization is actually the transfer of responsibility for planning, management, and resource raising and allocation from the central government to A. Field units of central government ministries or agencies. B. Subordinate units or levels of government. C. Semi-autonomous public authorities or corporations. D. Area-wide, regional or functional authorities. Or E. Organizations of private and voluntary sectors. So the power from the national government will be transferred to the local government units. So ang transfer dyan ay yung responsibilidad for planning, yung pagpaplano, pagmamanage, and even the resource raising on paano sila magkakaroon ng budget and allocations from the central government. So these five will be discussed later, or will be discussed on the next topic. Okay, so these are the field units. Dito tinatransfer yung power. Okay, field units of central government ministries or agencies, yung mga subordinate units or levels of government natin, pati yung mga semi-autonomous public authorities or corporations, yung mga area-wide, regional or functional authorities, and yung mga organizations na private and voluntary sectors. So, kasama dyan yung mga corporations gaya ng Celcor, okay, iba Meralco, and other institutions, private institutions na under control of the local government. So therefore, the planning and management will be under control of the local government and not the central government anymore. So what is a political decentralization? Ano ba yung decentralization? So the devolution or absolute transfer of power from the central government to local authorities through legislation. People are given the opportunity to govern themselves so they can have mastery and control of their own environment. So if you can still remember, we have discussed the different kinds or types of decentralization. So we have the devolution, the concentration, and the bureaucratization. So what is a political decentralization? So the political decentralization, the power itself, the absolute power, will be coming from the central government and passing it to the local government. So ipapasa na ang power and authority from the central government to the local government sa pamamagitan ng legislation or yung mismong legislative body ang magpapasa nito. Okay? So people are given the opportunity to govern themselves. So mismong yung local government units at yung mga tao nito, sila mismo mag-govern sa kanilang sarili. So without the power of the national government, or with the guidance only of the power of the national government, so that they can have the mastery and control of their own environment. Tandaan natin, bawat probinsya or bawat local government unit, municipalities, cities, okay, and rural areas, they have their own culture na iba't iba silang kaparaanan na maaring hindi applicable sa ibang province. So for example, if you are going to make a law or create a law regarding fisheries na kung saan sa isang probinsya ay wala namang dagat, so how can you apply the law of fisheries? So without the control of the national government, the local government can create their own laws so that they can improve their way of living, the standard of living. So, na-adjust nila yung base sa pangailangan nila at ma-adjust nila ang kanilang budget base sa kanilang pangailangan. So, the absolute power will be coming from the local government now, or will be vested upon the local government na hindi na mula sa national government. Only guided by the national government, but the power, the absolute authority is from the local government. So next we have the administrative decentralization. So kanina is political decentralization. Now we have administrative decentralization. Centralization of power or authority from the highest level of the institutional hierarchy to the lower levels of the same organization. That's the decentralization in the context of administration. So ministries or departments establish a system of regional or local administration to facilitate decision-making and more responsive delivery of services. So the transfer of functions and powers can be temporal and can be recalled by the authority who may be transferred. So I'll show you a model para madali siyang ipaliwanag. So as you can see in this diagram of 1992 and at present, there is decentralization of administration. So from the Department of Health, which is the organization per se, has distributed its power from the highest hierarchy to the lower or the lowest hierarchy. So we have DOH in regional office, then DOH provincial offices, then district offices, and so on and so forth unto the lower level. So yun ang tinatawag nating administrative decentralization. So yung mga departments natin in this system from regional to local with the lowest part of the local system, and they have to decide on their own, and para mas madali na rin i-provide yung mga services na kailangang i-provide ng government, ginagawa natin ito. So that's administrative decentralization. The transfer of functions, pati yung powers ng mismong office or mismong department, ay na-transfer din sa lower levels of the hierarchy, pero anytime pwede rin itong bawiin mismo. So yun nga sabi ko sa may DOH natin, example ng DOH natin, anytime pwede bawiin mismo ng higher level ng DOH yung power ng lower level. At syempre ang pinakaugat nito ay from the central government, which is the DOH per se, or the agency of DOH na pang national level. So from the highest to the lower or the lowest level of the hierarchy na to transfer ang power and authority in making decisions and delivery of the services of the government, yan yung tinatawag natin administrative decentralization. And of course, we have also other decentralization schemes gaya nitong mga parastatal semi-autonomous bodies, no? At yung mga private companies, transfer of governmental functions to non-governmental organizations. So let's see. So first we have the use of parastatal semi-autonomous bodies that perform specific governmental functions. So for example, regional development authorities and individual states empowered to perform certain corporate functions. So meron akong isang example dito. This is an example of parastatal entity or organization, yung tinatawag natin Philippine Forest Corporation. This is under the DENR or the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. So there is a specific function only that the government is willed to do, and of course that is to protect our forestry. So in doing that, DNR owned this Philippine Forest Corporation as a parastatal organization under control of the government agency, which is DNR. So from the DNR to that parastatal semi-autonomous body, so it is specifically functioning based on the DNR's will. Okay, so kung yun ang will niya from the central government DNR going to the local government agencies, pumapasok yung parastatal agency na to as locally administered organization. So naipasa na sa yung power from DNR to Philippine Forestry Organization. So that's another decentralization scheme. Next, we have privatization or the transfer of governmental functions to non-governmental organizations. Ito ang mga examples ng mga privatized enterprises na dating hawak ng government of the Philippines. So we have the Philippine Long Distance Telephone Company, Petron, Philpost, Philippine Airlines, Metropolitan Water Works and Sewerage System. So including National Power Corporation. So these private institutions are semi-autonomously operating because the function of these private institutions are very important in the national growth. Okay? So para mas maging improving ang national growth natin, so privatize na ang ilang mga national government agencies and national government controlled organizations into private organizations. So yun nga yung mga examples natin. Okay? So that's one of the schemes of decentralization. Next of the schemes, we have complementation, which includes prototypes of decentralization schemes. So for example, we have small efforts of local communities which take initiatives with or without outside help to get organized for their own development. So examples of these are the community pantries, the charity works, especially in this time of pandemic. So yung community natin, they are taking initiatives to help with or without the help of other organized group for the certain development. No? So the local government code institutes decentralization sa pamamagitan ng by transferring to LGU's primary responsibility for delivering basic services and facilities. So by transferring to LGU's regulatory powers over certain activities in the locality, by enhancing the governmental and corporate powers of LGUs, by improving national government LGU relations in accordance with the requirements of a decentralized setup, by institutionalizing LGU, NGO, private sector relations to broader support for local autonomy, and by deconcentrating central authority to regional or field offices of national agencies. So, the local government code institutes decentralization sa pamamagitan ng pag-transfer ng LGU's primary responsibility for delivering basic services. Okay? So, gaya ng pagbibigay ng ayuda, okay, from the national government, ibinababa na yan sa local government units so that they could deliver it to the people of the local province or barangays. So also, by transferring to LGU's regulatory powers over certain activities in the locality, so anything under the local government or local province, local cities, or barangays, they have the power to regulate anything inside that locality. And also by enhancing the governmental and corporate powers of the LGUs, mas lalo pang ina-enhance or ini-improve ang power ng governmental and corporate powers of the LGUs. Mas lumalawak ang power nito by improving national government LGU relations in accordance with the requirements of decentralized setup. Mas lalong nagiging maganda ang relations between the national government and the LGUs kasi nagta-transfer na lang ng power and authority ang national government to LGU. So hindi na kailangan ng marami pang complex planning and management. Binibigay na lahat yun sa LGU. So, binibigay na lang ng national government yung power sa LGU automatically. So, it's like a unified vertical relationship. By institutionalizing LGU, NGO, private sector relations to broader support for local autonomy, syempre, once na-establish na yung mga LGUs and NGO natin, including private sectors, relationships, ay mas malawak na ang masusuportahan nito for local autonomy. So for example, yung paggamit ng CELCOR, ng power of providing electricity to the different people of Cabanatuan. So sa halip na trabaho pa siya ng NGO, because the NGO provided the authority for the CELCOR as private sector to provide electricity to the people of Cabanatuan. So mas lumalawak ang local autonomy nito. Okay? So, by also deconcentrating central authority to regional or field offices of national agencies. Through the local government code, it states that the central authority has the power to delegate or deconcentrate its power to regional or field offices. So example niyan yung mga national agencies like DTI, BIR. So kapag dine-concentrate nila yung kanilang power to the regional, so meron na tayong regional office of the DTI, meron tayong mga city offices of DTI. So from the national agency of DTI to the different regional and field offices of the local governments, nade-concentrate na yung central authority. Napaka-helpful nito kasi sa halip na lahat ng files na dapat i-process ay pa-process ni national government, baka magtagal yung pag-process ng ilang mga papers of the local people. So because of decentralization, deconcentration of power authority, napaprocess ka agad yung mga needs of the people in the local government units. Deconcentration is the transfer of power, authority, or responsibilities, or the discretion to plan, decide, and manage from a central point to lower or local levels, but within the central government itself. Ang deconcentration ay almost the same with decentralization kasi nga ang deconcentration ay parte lamang or tipo lang naman ng decentralization. So, to be specific, as one of the types of decentralization, ang deconcentration pag-transfer to ng kapangyarihan, otoridad, at responsibilidad at kaisipan or initiative to plan, pagpaplano at pagde-decide at pag-manage ng ilang mga issues of the local or lower levels, okay, of governance. So syempre sa within the central government lang. So kung halimbawa magde-decide ang local government unit to conduct a certain foundation or charity works, so they have the right to do so, and because they have the power and authority and also responsibility to create a plan, and also to for example to reconstruct a certain road, meron din naman silang kapangyarihan to do that because the power they have had been deconcentrated from the national government to the local government. So imagine kung ano ang gandang maidudulot sa atin nito. So yung mga simpleng bagay na hindi na natin kailangan pang i-send sa national government para mas lalo pang dumami trabaho nila, matatrabaho na within the local government because there is the concentration of power. We have here the types of the concentration. One is shifting of workload, simply shifts the workload from the central government, magbabawas ng trabaho from the central government to its field offices, which does not necessarily include the transfer of the appropriate authority to decide. So there are times on the concentration, hindi na kailangan na i-shift pa o ipasa pa yung pagde-decide mismo sa mga DTIs na nasa local government units natin, pero mismo ipapasa na lang ay yung trabaho. Okay, so for example, yung pagbibigay ng ayuda natin, so magpo-provide ng law yung ating national government agency, and then ipapasa sa local government unit. Hindi na nila kailangan mag-decide. They just need to implement the law or the plan that had been provided to them. So that's one type of deconcentration. Next is field administration. So it allows field officers some degree of discretion to decide. So sa field administration, yung ilang mga field offices na natin na nasa local government ay they have the right or sometimes a power to create a plan or decide on a plan and carry out such plans and adjust the implementation of central directiveness to suit local conditions. So there are times naman yung created plan by the national agency ay hindi swak sa local government. So sometimes they have the field administration, they can create another plan and implement it urgently. So depende sa suitability ng mismong plan na ginawa ng national agency. So despite the grant of relative authority, the field staffs remain as employees of the national government and subject to its direction and control. So sa kabila na meron silang ganong kapangyarihan, hindi pa rin absolute yun because it is just a relative power given to them. So field administration is a kind of power given to them which is very relative. So anytime na nakita ng DTI, ng BIR, any other national agencies na hindi pa rin applicable or hindi siya constitutional o hindi nararapat at suitable sa ginawa nilang major plan, ay maaari pa rin nilang bawiin yung kanilang created plan and even the implementation. So those are shifting workloads and field administration. Next, we have the integrated local administration. So regional, provincial, or district offices of national line agency are established, and each is headed by a chief executive who is appointed by or is responsible to the central government. So yung mga established na mga national line agency natin, yung mga DTI, BIR, or any other agency in line with the national government agencies are provided with the heads o yung tinatawag nilang chief executives na ina-appoint lamang ng central government. So, and also responsible to report to the national government, which is the central government. So, yung mga DTIs natin appointed at yung mga BIRs natin na appointed to be the chief executive in a certain locality ay kailangan mag-report pa rin. So, ang tawag natin dyan is integrated local administration. So, from the central government nanggagaling yung appointment and then dinadala sa local government natin. That's integrated local administration. Next, we have the unintegrated local administration. So, it describes an arrangement by which the field staff, usually doing technical functions, and the administrative staff in the area who are both responsible to the same national office operate independently of and with little or no formal power over each other. So may mga instances naman na pinadala yung national office. Yung isa is for technical function, yung isa naman is for chief function or administrative function. So they are in both area pero they have different functions and hindi sila covered ng power ng bawat isa. So it happens sometimes, like for example, yung office ng DTI from Pampanga and office ng DTI nang galing ng ibang lugar like Nueva Ecija ay maaaring nagpadala ng mga representatives from DTI or national agency, but yet they do not have power over each other. So, ang tawag natin doon, unintegrated local administration. So, again, these are the different types of deconcentration. First, we have the shifting of workloads. Second, we have the field administration. Third, we have the integrated local administration and the unintegrated local administration. Next, we have devolution. Devolution, on the other hand, is the transfer of power and authority from the central government to local government units. Kaya nga tinawag na devolution. So, sa halip na nag-evolve, it became devolved. So, mula sa pinakamaganda o pinakamalaki, pinakamataas, bumaba siya sa level ng pinakamababa. So, in the case of the government or local government, from the central government, which is the higher, and it transferred its power and authority from the central government, the higher one, onto the local government units o yung pinakamababa. So, ang tawag natin doon is devolution. So, what are the functions of devolution as a service delivery? So, number one, we have it as it is essentially more democratic since elected officials will be held responsible for the delivery of such services. So, it seems like it's more democratic because talagang yung mga officials of the local government units yung magpo-provide ng mga services. So, hindi national government but the local government. It is more efficient since LGUs can better respond to diverse and changing local conditions. Siyempre, mas madaling malaman kung ano yung mas maganda mismo doon sa local government unit at mamadali lang din nila itong i-apply because of the differences na pwede nilang gawin in different local government unit, hindi kagaya na kapag NGO na o National Government Office, it would be national. Okay, so pwedeng hindi suitable. And next we have, it is more equitable, since local communities are more likely to get their due share of public services. So it is more impartial o patas sa mga local communities because kung ano yung kailangan na public services ng local communities natin, yun ang ipoprovide. So mas madaling ma-identify kung ano yung pangailangan, mas madali din i-provide. So because of that, the shares will be given depending on the needs of the local communities, no? So depende sa liit, sa laki at pangailangan. So it would be more impartial or fair. So the local government code specifies the minimum set of services and facilities assigned to each level of LGU. So may specific set of services and facilities na ina-assign sa bawat LGU. So depende, no, sa qualifications. So why? So we have the reasons here. Number one, it is easier to determine whether basic services and facilities are frontline services or not. So mas madaling malaman kung mas kailangan ng local communities ang basic services and facilities or hindi naman. Okay, so it facilitates evaluation of the performance of the LGUs, since delivery of basic services and facilities lends itself more readily to quantifications and verifications. So performance standards and targets could be easily set and outputs measured against such standards and targets. So simple lang kasi mas maliit ang population natin at mas maliit yung locality natin. Mas madali ngayon ayusin yung standards, iset ang standards, at madali rin siya i-measure. Hindi gaya ng nationwide measurement. How hard it is to measure the whole quantifications of the needs, no, nung mismong bawat locality kung i-consider natin lahat. So next, it is easier to delineate and allocate responsibility for basic services and facilities among the different levels of local government. This is to avoid duplication of function and encroachment of powers and responsibilities among the different levels of local government. So syempre, mas madali ngayon ma-identify at ilagay yung responsibilidad ng mga basic services natin o sa basic services natin and even in the facilities natin sa iba't ibang levels of the local government, kasi mas maliit nga yung population nito at mas konti. So mas madali din maiwasan ang duplicate of function. Halimbawa sa isang barangay, hindi naman pwede na dalawa ang barangay captain natin. So because there are few people and few positions, madali maglagay ng isang pwesto na may power and responsibility. And of course, with different levels of local government, konti lang naman yung mga officials natin dyan. So madaling pasukan. So mas madali ngayon mabigyan o ma-allocate o mailagay sa tamang tao ang iba't ibang responsibilities natin sa pagpo-provide ng services natin at pag-ayos ng mga facilities natin because of the smaller range of territory. So the local government has regulatory powers. So ano-ano ba yung mga regulatory powers natin? So reclassification of agricultural lands. So kaya nilang i-classify yung mga agricultural lands natin into a commercial or residential lands. So that's one of the powers. Next, enforcement and environmental laws. So enforcement o pagpapatupad ng mga environmental laws natin gaya ng pagbawal sa pagtapon ng basura sa ilog o even sa roads natin. Inspection of food products. So they also have the power to regulate the foods or the products na involve ang foods natin. They can even ipagbawal yung mga dapat ipagbawal na mga foods. So quarantine and enforcement of the sanitation code. So they have the power to enforce the sanitation code of the Philippines o yung tinatawag nating Presidential Decree number 856. So merong power ang local government unit natin to identify or to quarantine the people or the place na hindi malinis ang water supply, food establishments. So even the sanitary permit requirements natin, they have the power to regulate that. Yung mga markets natin, yung mga abattoirs natin, o yung mga babuyan natin, mga public laundry o labahan, school sanitation, health services, industrial hygiene, public swimming, meron silang regulation dyan, no? So they have the power to regulate and to, quarantine the place or the people. Dancing schools, okay, hotels, and so on and so forth. Also, the local government code has the power to enforce o ipasatupad yung National Building Code natin. So, ano ba yung ating tinatawag na National Building Code? So, dinideclare nito ang policy of the state na pahalagahan ng buhay o protektahan ng buhay, health, property, and public welfare, consistent with the principles of sound environmental management and control, and to this end, make it purpose of this code to provide for all buildings and structures a framework of minimum standards. So, yung mga buildings natin, sila nagre-regulate ng the local government units have the right to regulate the standard of a certain building. Kung yan ba ay makakabuti o hindi makakabuti. What is the minimum standard of a building? As far as my knowledge is concerned, ang Cabanatuan City, they don't have the right to have walang karapatan na magkaroon ng building ang Cabanatuan na higher than 3rd floor. So any building dapat ay hanggang 3rd floor lamang. Okay. Also, the operation of tricycles, syempre yung operasyon ng mga tricycles natin, processing and approval of subdivision plans. So if the subdivision plan is appropriate or inappropriate, ang nag-regulate niyan ay yung local government units natin, including the barangay. So, establishment and licensing of cockpit, syempre yung pagbibigay ng license sa sabong, establishment and operation of tourism facilities. So, bago magkaroon ng tourism area doon and even the facilities, kailangan approved yan ng mga local government units natin, especially the city or municipality or municipal hall natin. Look at the regulation power of the regulatory powers of the local government units. Halos covered up niyan lahat ng parte ng buhay ng local government people, no? So, from the time na sa agricultural lands natin hanggang sa tourism natin, ay kasama yan sa regulation powers or regulatory powers of the local government units. So, to summarize everything that we have discussed, napakalinaw na there is actually decentralization in the local government from the central government. Decentralization of powers and responsibility. Kasama na dyan yung planning, management, and even the enforcement of laws and the regulatory powers of the local government units. So next time we will be discussing each and every regulatory powers of the local government unit. For the meantime, I should say goodbye. Okay? See you next time. Well, it is time to say goodbye. Thank you for watching. See you next time.